Well, good evening, friends, and welcome to another edition of Women Supporting Women series. My name is Nadine. I'm the founder of the Second Win for Empty Nesters Facebook group. And it's a vision, it was born out of a vision that the empty nest is a place where women make room for themselves again. They reconnect with their dreams and their passions, and they boldly design a new chapter, right? But I created this Women Supporting Women platform as an extra space for the women in this community to showcase their dream, well, not their dreams, but their talents, their gifts, their passions, their projects and businesses for their own benefit, but also to show the other women in their group who might still be wondering what's next, what their next season could look like, right? So, when we picture the empty nest, especially the empty nest years, we often imagine a season where life suddenly becomes quiet and we finally have this endless time to pursue our own dreams. Yet, for many of us, that's not really the case. Our roles change, but they don't go away. We may find ourselves caring for grandchildren, check, supporting aging parents, check, remaining deeply involved in our adult children's lives. But we're also hearing this quiet invitation to rediscover who we are. So that's why tonight's conversation resonated so deeply with me, and that's why I'm so delighted to welcome back Janet Farmer to our Women Supporting Women platform. We had the pleasure of chatting with Janet a few months back. We were discussing the second act advantage. Why women are in the emptiness women are perfectly positioned for their next chapter. And if anybody missed that conversation, please check it out. Please look at the replay in the featured section of the Second Wind Facebook group and on our YouTube channel. So for those of you who do not know Janet, I will introduce her myself. She lives in Florida, and I'm a little frozen. Oh, I'm unfrozen. Okay, she's a lifelong entrepreneur and mentor. She's the owner of the Creative Tech Studio and the founder of Women Entrepreneurs of Greater Lakes, Wales. She is passionate about helping women recognize that their experience and wisdom can become the foundation for meaningful opportunities, something that I believe strongly in. And outside of her work, Janet is a wife, a mother, and a grandmother of 11 children, grandchildren. Sorry about that. So, without further ado, thank you, Janet, for being here with us again tonight.
Oh, Nadine, thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure and it's an honor for me to be invited in and to share with your audience. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's actually our audience because you're a proud member of this community. So,
Yes, that's
girlfriend.
true.
So, the emptiness paradox when being needed and your next chapter collide. That is the topic of tonight's the conversation. And you've described the stage as such, the emptiness paradox. So, what does that phrase mean to you personally, Janet? And what experiences led to you giving it that name?
Well, before I answer,
Yes.
Nadine, I just want to offer a little disclaimer.
Okay,
I'm
sure.
not an expert on empty nest years, okay? I'm just simply sharing from my own, personal experience after being an empty nester for several years now. I'm just speaking from the heart. So I just wanted to be upfront. And I want to also say that, I certainly don't want to presume that every woman is going to experience this season in the same way that I am or feels the way that I do about this season.
Mhm.
We all come into it with different family dynamics, responsibilities, expectations, and emotions.
Mhm.
But I do hope that sharing honestly from my heart, something in our conversation will be helpful or encouraging to someone that's listening.
Very good. Absolutely.
So, so the empty nest paradox, it's kind of a mouthful, I know, but to me, it's the idea that this season should bring more time and space to pursue our own interests, right? Yet we may still feel this deep pull that because we're still needed by the people that we love.
Mhm.
And, we often expect life to, be a little quieter once our children are grown, which can bring a mix of emotions, right? It can bring happy emotions as well as sad with that. But it should also give us an opportunity to ask, like, what do I want my life to look like now?
Absolutely.
The reality is that motherhood, it doesn't end just because, we move into this next realm. It doesn't end when our children leave home. We're still mothers.
Mhm.
And so those relationships and responsibilities, they're going to look different. They're going to change, but our adult children may still need our support. Then grandchildren start coming along and they need help with the grandkids. And then our marriages sometimes are empty or, entering a new phase as well, whether it be, the spouse is retiring or passes away or there's a divorce. Like there could be a lot of change in this season, not just with the empty nest, right? And then, of course, we've already mentioned our aging parents. So at the same time, dreams we've placed on the shelf may begin to start calling to us again,
Mhm.
but we're feeling that pull of responsibility still, even though the children have left the home. So that's been the paradox for me. I have things that I want to build, I want to learn, I want to create and experience while also wanting to be present for the people that I love. Both matter, but the challenge is learning that I do not have to abandon one in order to honor the other.
Absolutely. And I feel the same way. We're in the same exact situation. I know our friend here, Dominique, was in the same exact situation. I remember she was a grandmother before I was, and she was very much needed by her daughter, to watch the kids. And I'm like, wait a second, you have a life. You have a life too. Think of yourself. I used to say that. And then I find myself as a grandmother in the exact same situation. So this is something that it's relevant to many of us, to most of us, I think.
I
So
think so.
absolutely. So many women imagine the emptiness will bring freedom, you know, and time for themselves. But of course, the reality is looking quite different. So, what surprised you the most about this season of life, Janet?
Um, I would say what surprised me most was that life didn't automatically become less full just because my children were grown
Right?
and gone, right? There may have been fewer lunches to make and, maybe not as many schedules to manage anymore. But the emotional and the practical responsibilities, they did not simply disappear. They just were replaced by new ones.
Okay.
It just looked different.
Mhm.
So after spending decades, kind of responding to everyone else's needs, it, felt a little strange to suddenly be asking myself, what do I want
Right.
now? And even then, I think for a lot of women, you may feel as though you have to justify those choices,
Right.
even to yourself
Right.
or to the people who are still
Mhm.
kind of demanding your time and your attention,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So that was a little surprising.
Yeah. Mhm. Find myself doing that every day. It's like you do have to justify yourself. Well, mothers, what can I say? So for many women, the children may have left home, like you said, but they're now, of course, supporting um, but we're still supporting the adult children, is what I'm trying to say. And we're caring for the grandchildren. That's my case, and helping the aging parents, which is also my case, and serving their communities, in which case this is my second win community that I'm serving. But how do we lovingly care for others without losing ourselves in the process?
That's a great question. And I think, it has to begin with accepting that caring for others and caring for ourselves, they're not opposing choices, right? It's not, I'm choosing one over the other.
Mhm.
As nurturing women, we may feel that love means always being available, always saying yes, or being the person who kind of holds everything together. But when we continue to ignore our own limits, we can become exhausted, resentful, or even just disconnected from ourselves or those people that we're trying to serve and help, right? So
Mhm.
it's not good for us, and it's also not good for the people that we're trying to help. And I think that we have to get to a place where we have to learn to pause before automatically saying yes. So we can ask, ask ourselves, is this something I truly need to do or even want to do?
Mhm.
Am I the only person that can do it?
Mhm.
Do I have the emotional and physical capacity to do it right now?
Mhm.
Am I helping or am I taking responsibility for something that somebody else really should be handling? Because sometimes, love looks like showing up.
Mhm.
Other times, though, it means allowing someone else to solve a problem, make a
Right.
decision, or experience the consequences of their choices. So we can care deeply about the people we love without automatically making every want, need, problem, request our responsibility.
Yes, I so love that you said that. This is so very true. So, and it's true. When you spend a decade, caring for someone else, you just said it a few minutes ago, reconnecting with yourself can feel unfamiliar and even uncomfortable, but how did you begin to rediscover who Janet was, beyond the roles of mother, wife, and, caregiver? How did you do that?
Well, I think every day is a time to rediscover ourselves. So I think it's a daily process. But I would say that, rediscovering myself did not mean that I was rejecting those roles. I love being a wife, a mother, and especially a grandmother.
Mhm.
Those relationships, are a meaningful part of who I am, but they're not the whole of who I am.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's not all of me.
Mhm.
And I started just kind of, paying attention to what made me feel interested and energized again. I
Mhm.
realized how much I still enjoyed learning and creating, and that I still had a real passion for becoming, for being an entrepreneur.
Right.
So as I look back at the different seasons of my life, that helped me to recognize the skills and the strengths that I'd gained along the way through these years. My experience in business, teaching, mentoring, volunteering, serving my community, they all helped shape who I am today.
Mhm.
And so for me, it was less about rediscovering myself,
Mhm.
and I think more about reconnecting with parts of myself that had been there all along, but maybe they were just kind of dormant because I was so busy with everyone else's needs.
Mhm. Yeah. So, more than uncomfortable or, unfamiliar, women tend to feel guilty as well when they invest time in their own dreams and their own interests
Yes.
and their own personal growth, especially when they feel that they are still needed. Right. So, have you experienced that tension? And how have you been able to move beyond that guilt if you've ever felt that emotion, guilt? Because I know I do sometimes.
Yeah, I do feel it. And I would say that tension is very real. It's like a different kind of mom guilt,
Mm-hmm.
but it can still feel very heavy. So even though we're moms and grandmas, it's still a mom guilt because
Mm-hmm.
it's usually our adult children that are asking the most of us. It's not the grandkids necessarily, right? Because they might still be little.
Mm-hmm.
So, when you've spent years focused on everyone else's needs, making time for your own dreams can really feel kind of selfish.
Right.
It's not,
No, it's
but it
not.
can feel that way. And that can be especially true when I think your family members have expectations about what you should be doing with all your free time.
Mm-hmm.
right? So I have to say, we need to remember that this is a new season for them too. You know, they've relied on us for most of their lives, so it can be real easy for them to assume that we're just always going to be available
Right.
whenever they ask,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But what helped me was realizing that pursuing my own interest does not take does not take my love away from my family.
Mm-hmm.
I want my children and grandchildren to see that a woman's life does not end when one role changes. And by continuing to learn and dream and build and grow, even as I age,
Mm-hmm.
I hope that I'm encouraging them to do the same
Right.
so that when they get to this stage of life, they can remember mom never stopped becoming,
Right.
grand never stopped growing, learning, working, doing. She
Right.
was always, you know, going for more. I want them to remember that.
That I feel that exactly the same way. Yeah. So let's talk though about the difference between being lovingly available and losing ourselves in being constantly available, because those are two different things. So how are you navigating it?
I think this is one of my favorite topics.
Okay.
I am still navigating it. It's kind
Right.
of like the other one, you know,
Uh,
still reconnecting with myself on a daily basis. It's a decision, it's a choice. And so I think, I don't think this is something that most of us decide once and then we just never struggle with it again. I think it is an ongoing struggle.
mhm,
Hopefully the load gets lighter
mhm,
once we realize, it's not being selfish. We learn how to manage these feelings of guilt.
mhm,
But I really believe that, being lovingly available means that I care, I
right.
listen, I show up when it truly matters. But on the contrary, being constantly available means treating every request, interruption, or problem as though it must immediately become my responsibility. So I kind of go back to, like I said earlier, of learning to pause
Mhm,
and pause the request, and wait before I answer.
mhm,
So instead of just automatically saying yes, I can say things like, let me look at what I already have planned,
right.
or I need to think about that and get back to you.
Mhm, mhm,
And
mhm,
that small pause gives me time to make a choice instead of just reacting out of habit.
mhm,
Because I think our habit is to fix, our habit is to say yes, our habit is to work it all out, right? But it
right.
gives me a chance to not react in that way.
Mhm,
And it gives me time to also work through any guilt of saying no,
mhm.
especially when I don't have a major reason other than I just simply don't want to do something or I don't want to change my plans.
Right.
I can feel really guilty then, but I shouldn't feel
Right.
guilty. They
Right.
don't feel guilty if they can't
Asking.
come for dinner or don't want to,
Right.
whatever, right? And
Right.
we shouldn't have to feel guilty either.
Right.
So I'm realizing that, being available does not mean having to have immediate access. So
Mhm,
I can return a call later. I can offer a different day to help. I can offer to help in like one specific way instead of taking over the entire situation. I can just bring rolls to dinner. I don't have to make the whole dinner for
mhm.
them, right? If I was invited, it's real easy to say, well, I'll bring the this and the this and the this and the this, and now I've been cooking all day and I was going to dinner at their home, right? So
Mhm.
that's just a silly example, but I think you know what I mean. So to
Absolutely.
me, the goal is not to become unavailable, but to become more intentional.
Mhm,
And that can feel really uncomfortable for us as moms and grandmothers.
mhm,
But I believe it's a healthier way to kind of navigate this season and this issue.
mhm. And I think it becomes a little bit more complicated as well when grandma happens to be in the same house as the parent, because this is actually what my case is right now. This is not an ideal
Yes.
situation, but it is my situation now where I am actually left home to help my daughter care for baby number one. And now baby number three is coming in just a few days. You see how it happens, you know?
Yes. 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 And I've been there too. I have been there. I've been in the home, living in the home with the parents and the grandkids and the dogs and the cats and the goats and all of it.
Absolutely. So as our families grow and they change, our relationship with our adult children also evolve. We've said that. And it's like it's another kind of growing pains because that too can be a little bit uncomfortable when you're treating your children as an equal adult, you know. So what have you learned about building a healthy, loving relationship while respecting one another's independence? That's a good one.
Well, you're right about the growing pains.
Yeah.
They're
Mhm.
certainly there,
Mhm.
and it can take a while
Mhm.
for that to kind of flesh itself out.
Mhm. Mhm.
You know, when we were acting in the role of mother with them at home, we spent those years, making decisions for them sometimes, offering direction, solving problems, and trying our best to protect our children. And
Mhm.
then one day we have to learn to how to stay connected with them, but at the same time, step back
Right.
and allow
Watch
them
them
to lead.
do.
Yes, allow them to lead their own lives, right?
Right.
So, I've learned that adult children, they need our trust more than they need our instructions. And I think that's a good place to start is just remembering that to help change that relationship. And I do feel like that kind of resides with us
Mm-hmm.
to start the growth of that relationship because we have the most experience
Mm-hmm.
in this, right? They don't.
Right.
They've only experienced life in a short span and with one type of relationship with us, basically,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So, that may mean that we wait to give advice until it's requested,
Absolutely.
supporting their choices, that even when they're choices we would not make ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
and respecting that their homes, their marriages, their schedules, and their priorities,
Right.
that belongs to them, right? And so we have to, as hard as it is, kind of accept that.
Right.
That being said, they have to also have reciprocal respect. That respect needs to go both ways. And what I mean by that is that they need to also honor our time
Mm-hmm.
and our choices
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and the fact that we are still building lives of our own, even in this next chapter.
Yeah.
We're not done. We're still building our life in
Absolutely.
this next chapter. So I think it is important to, maintain a relationship with our children that is separate from the grandchildren.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy to do. I mean, I love being a grandmother. I love, love, love it. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I just simply want time with my grown children
Mm-hmm.
because I enjoy who they are as people. I like them. I enjoy hearing what they're thinking about, what
Mm-hmm.
they're working toward, what's
Mm-hmm.
happening in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's going to take some intention because everyone is busy.
Right.
They're busy, we're busy, everybody's busy. But it could be something as simple as inviting them to coffee or lunch every few months.
Mm-hmm.
We can just keep reaching out without making them feel guilty, but also while still communicating that the relationship as adults matters and it deserves our attention. So I think it has to be very intentional.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mentioned that I'm a live-in grandmother, and you mentioned that you have been through that as well. So it's that next question is really appropriate because it really refers to that. Like grandmothers often describe wanting to be present without becoming overwhelmed. How do you avoid that when you're a live-in grandmother? Because, like I said, I mean, that one, it's like you can't get away from
Yeah,
it.
that's
How,
definitely
how did
more
you balance
challenging.
that? Yeah.
I'm not sure you can balance it. But even if you're not in the same home, sometimes it can feel like you are
Uh-huh.
because they're always coming over or they're always asking you to babysit. Or in the case of, sometimes you don't live together, but you're the babysitter while they're gone to work.
Right.
So you have the kids all day, Monday through Friday, and then they want to go out on the weekends, and so they want you to keep them on the weekends too, so that you almost feel like you're raising those grandchildren,
Right.
right? So it is definitely, it can be challenging, and even myself with 11 grandkids, being a
11.
grandmother is a very meaningful part of my
Yeah.
life, and I do
Yeah.
want to be present and involved and connected,
Hmm.
but I don't necessarily want to attend every event.
Yeah. I get you.
Okay. I don't want to meet every need.
Right.
And it doesn't mean I don't love them, but that's the truth of it. Being present isn't just about how much time we give, but it's also about the quality of the connection that we have with them.
Hmm.
So sometimes that does mean showing up for an important event or keeping the kids maybe a little more than you wanted to. But other times it's just maybe having the time to set a type of tradition with those grandkids, having conversation with them, making sure they're seen and loved, but not that you have to basically be there all the time. You
Right.
just, you only have so much energy
Hmm.
and so much time in your schedule. And
Right.
we still have other responsibilities in our lives. And I think we have to be honest with our adult children about that. Like we have to have a discussion, and we can't expect for them to understand this phase of our life without taking the time to explain it.
Yeah.
And I think that can really help draw some boundaries
Hmm.
if you have a discussion about it.
Hmm.
There are things that we want to do, you
Hmm.
know, and there are times that I just need to unplug
Right.
everyone,
Right.
even the spouse, the dog, like all of it.
Yeah.
But instead of being truthful about that, we kind of hide it because we want to still be super
Hmm.
mom and super grandma.
Right.
And, we think that's our way of showing love, but we we really are doing a disservice by not having open communication
It,
about that
yeah, because
and
it
being
creates all
intentional.
kinds of frustrations. It does
Yes.
damage the relationship in the long run. It creates
Yep.
a little bit of resentment, you
Hmm.
know. So yeah, it is absolutely important to have those channels of communication so that
I
you
think
can
so.
understand
And
each
they
other.
can pick up on it. Like, even if
Yeah.
you're saying yes, 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 yes,
Hmm.
they're going to pick up the vibe when you're feeling resentful or whatever that underlying feeling you might be having, and you wish you didn't have to do it, but you feel like you can't say no.
Hmm.
They're going to pick up on it. And like you said, it is going to put a damper on the
It is.
relationship. Whereas if we had just talked about it,
Mhm.
they might not like it at first, but they're going to be like, okay,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. So I'm going to skip a couple of questions because I'm mindful of the time that we're spending together, but I'm going to
sure.
ask you one last question. And
Okay.
I like this one. It says, imagine a woman listening today who feels that she's standing at a crossroads. She spent years taking care of everybody else and isn't sure what comes next. What first step would you encourage her to take this week toward creating a meaningful next chapter?
I think the first thing would be I would encourage her to make an appointment with herself. Set
Mm.
aside 30 quiet minutes, turn off her phone, grab a notebook, perhaps a cup of coffee, and then maybe ask herself some honest questions, because before we can be honest with everybody else, we have to get honest with ourselves. So, ask yourself, what is it that I miss? What am I still curious about? What is one of those things that I've been saying, I'll get to that someday?
Mhm.
What still gives me energy or like inspires me, lights me up? What part of myself have I neglected? and then just choose one. Choose one small action to
Mm-hmm.
take this week, whether that's to send the email, research a class you want to take a walk,
Mm-hmm.
pull out those art supplies, go play some pickleball,
Oh,
write
yes.
down that business idea that's been brewing in your head,
Mhm.
call the friend, meet for coffee.
Yeah.
Protect just 1 hour on your calendar this week for you and what you really want to do. And remember that the first step in figuring out the entire doesn't like, I don't have to figure out the entire next chapter. I just need to decide and recognize that our life, my life, your life, it belongs on our priority list too.
True. Exactly. Of course. Absolutely. So thank you. Thank you so much, Janet, for this beautiful conversation. So Janet has reminded us today that the empty nests aren't simply about having more time. They're about discovering how to honor both the people that you love and who you are still becoming, the woman you're still becoming. So before we close, I'd like to leave our community with one question. What is one way you can care for yourself this week while continuing? Janet offered some suggestions, but think about, your own answers. What is one way you can care for yourself this week while continuing to love and support the people who matter most to you? Take out your journals, you know what I'm saying? The journal about it. So, but please look for Janet's contact card in the comments when I post the replay of this beautiful conversation, and it'll be on our YouTube channel as well. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love for you to share your thoughts and your comments. And you never know who might be inspired by your own story in the comments. So thank you all for being here with me tonight. And there is one thing that I hope that you'll take away from this conversation, and this is the new way that I'm looking at second win as well, is that the empty nest isn't the end of being needed. It's an invitation to discover that your own dreams deserve a place alongside the people you love. So it's a gentle pivot, but that's what it is. Because your life before does not stop. Look, I'm frozen. Hate when that happens. But yeah, your life doesn't stop. It's you're just making room, for yourself now, because you're just as important as the beautiful people in your life that you've been caring for. So I hope to see you all next month event, where it'll be a health subject next time. I'll have a lovely friend from Norway who will be our guest next week, Camilla Norman. So I want to thank everyone, and I say good night to all of you. And like we say at Second Wind, always dream big. Thank you so much, everyone. And I'm still frozen. Good night,
We can hear
everyone.
you though.
Wonderful.